What does it stand for?
Torque Game Builder. So we're switching the name to Torque 2D, which is actually where we started. We've been known for playing with names way too many times. Going forward, we're just going to have Torque 2D and Torque 3D. Simple. So this is actually a alpha, like a pre-alpha build of our next version of TGB. But it's our 2D technology. We have specific level editors for 2D. You can bring in 3D objects, but they're treated like 2D objects. So it's our specific tool pipeline for 2D game specific.
This isn't officially out.
So no, this is like pre-alpha disclaimer, right? So if things don't work on this, it's not expected to work on this game easily. So yeah, I'm going to install the last release version of Torque.
So is this like essentially Torque Game Builder, like upgraded or something?
Yeah, basically. So it's our next version of TGB, basically. But like Torque 3D, we're trying to put a lot of effort into really getting some nice improvements on it. So Torque 3D, as if anyone has known the previous versions installed in demonstration, we've added quite a few features to it. In a lot of ways, it's almost like a new technology. There's a lot of rendering improvements. Torque 2D, we're trying to really add a lot of nice features to it as well for the next big version. Last release. So Torque 2D, the next version, one of the major features we're looking at is real-time networking. So Torque 2D, TGB has inherited some of the networking from the 3D end, which is something Torque's always been known for. But the networking was very specific to 3D games and 3D player movement and interrelations, 3D player positioning stuff. So TGB hasn't had real-time networking up until now. Part of it is because TGB is a very easy, compared to working with 3D game technology, it's a very easy experience. You slap together your game and you control how those groups get dirty at sets and get them together versus some network optimization. We do some basic interpolation of position, sizes, and things like that for the majority of games that will be made in TGB. But real-time networking is one of the biggest features for the next version. Some people have been asking for a while.
Last time talking, I realized this is the guy
Another big feature we're working on in Torque 2D is highly improved physics. So we're looking at integrating box 2D physics library, if anyone knows that. And the trickier part, exposing that to networking. Physics networked, what to network, what not to network, especially in a 2D environment. It's pretty tricky because people get pretty creative with 2D physics games. So we're looking at trying to solve that problem as well as we can for the end user. That's on the horizon for the next big version of TGB. So right here is the last release version of TGB we have, 1.7.4. And has anyone here used TGB? No, okay. So TGB is much more approachable, partially just because 2D, obviously, one less dimension to worry about. So it makes designing some game concepts a whole lot easier. The editor and tools we spent a lot more time on them. In Torque 3, we actually take a page out of our 2D work and the tools we've done to really make the game development kind of more easy to use. So TGB is ahead with the 3D in some areas. For anybody, any questions starting off, or I'm just going to start going over like behaviors and things like that. But if anyone has any specific areas they'd like me to focus on.
Make a game.
Make a game, okay, yeah. So that brings me to behavior. So behaviors, TGB, we have a type of object called behavior, which is basically a script component, more or less. You can modularize your script code, slap it on your objects, and it has a basic like API for exposing it to the editor. So the big thing with TGB and 2D games is you just want to slap things together, right? So here's an example. All these objects have what we call behaviors on them, and you can see those here. So this object has 4 different ones. Takes damage, shoots, asteroid controls, and object overlay. And I'll show you what they do and then kind of explain what's doing what.
Like that's kind of like physics practice. Like
Right.
we have to like know what object is referring to.
So behaviors, like components, are kind of a hard thing to approach for people who are used to programming, like with just like classes and things like that. But it allows you to modularize your code and just slap that code onto whatever objects you want. For 2D games, especially like these, it works great. And I'll show you some examples. I'll dig into some of the scripts too. So this is just a demo. This comes with TGB if you buy it. So this demo exists and you can see it in all the source code. So like for example, this object bounces around, kind of like a bounce collision and like an asteroids type control. This is a tank. And this is a great place for you to start if you have TGB, because you basically get all the behaviors and functionality for all this. And you can take that out, customize it and so on. Over here we have different mouse behaviors, like spin. This is a flee from mouse behavior. And great for user interfaces for users, right? I can't quit your game. It's too good, you never want to quit it, right? Here's breakout, kind of demo. And we have a lot of the shared behaviors. I'm not very good at breakout. Not good at all. I got the game is playing me. So, yeah. So, best demonstration of it is create a new scene. So this is a new scene in the same project, shares all the same behaviors. So this is also a great way to start if you just want to play around with behaviors and you have TGB. Just hop into the behavior playground like I did and create a new scene. Because what that gives you is you can then, let's first add an object. So here's our background. You have different sizing options, of course, in TGB. And of course you can rotate and stuff. So we put abstract. So we drop in our paddle and size it a bit. Here we get access to all the different properties of our object, including behaviors. So here's an example of behaviors loaded for this project. These are all the behavior playground ones. This is the same project, just a new scene. And when you define a behavior, you can define fields. Those fields are exposed to the editor. You can define like int. You can define objects. So you can specify a specific object, and the editor handles it. So it kind of gives you just like a schema for loading stuff into the editor. And you can include descriptions. So that way, the end user, which is yourself, you can kind of explain to yourself how to use your own behaviors, or a scripter to a designer and so on. So in this case, we just want to give it something really simple to see it do something. Tell it just to follow mouse. We add it. So we have follow X and follow Y. These are all defined on the behavior, and I'll show you. If we're going to mimic kind of a breakout functionality, we'll tell it to only follow it in the X position. Save out my scene, and hit play. It launches my game. And now we have an object following our mouse. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish making the functionality. Kind of explain just a step of the way. Is that our ball? It's a little big. Well, let's keep it right. It's more comedic value, right? Come on. So in this case, the first thing you drop the ball, and the first thing you want to do is get it to bounce around the scene. So we actually don't have to do any behaviors for that. You can just define some collision parameters and what we call a world limit, which is basically the simple way to have basic collision if you just want an object enclosed in an area. So here I'm going to go down to collision and physics.
Are you applying that to the world or to that ball?
What was that?
Are you applying the box to the world or to the ball?
To the ball, actually. So each object can have its own world limits. And actually, I'll do that first then, since you asked. So you can do it via here, the actual properties if you want. We do have an interface. And basically, you just get a dragable box. And you can zoom in and